Did you know that after the age of 60, one of the biggest threats to your emotional health isn't illness, loneliness, or financial problems, but certain people within your own family? What if I told you that the people who are supposed to care for you might actually be the ones draining your peace, your energy, and even your joy of living? You may not realize it yet, but right now, without knowing, you could be surrounded by toxic relatives who are silently sabotaging your well-being. And the worst part is, and they do it without you even noticing, every phone call, every visit, every subtle comment could be wearing you down emotionally, day after day. But in this video, I'm going to reveal exactly who these people are. You'll finally understand why, after 60, it's essential to distance yourself from certain types of family members, and how doing this can transform your peace, your mental health, and your entire life. And I'll go even further. I'll expose the 5 most common and most dangerous types of relatives you should avoid at all costs, especially the last one, which almost no one talks about, but is responsible for the deepest emotional wounds in people over 60. So stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover could change the way you look at your family forever, and finally give you back the peace you've been searching for. Part 1. The energy vampire. The relative who only shows up to drain you. Have you ever noticed how after the age of 60, you begin to see people through a different lens? It's as if the weight of time sharpens your perception, stripping away illusions and revealing the truth about those around you. Suddenly, you realize who genuinely cares about you and who is simply there out of convenience, self-interest, or habit. And among these people, there's always one kind of relative who can quietly destroy your peace: the energy vampire. This relative doesn't appear to share joy, to celebrate your victories, or to support you when you need it. No, they appear like a dark cloud, heavy and suffocating, always bringing with them a storm of complaints, problems, and negativity. They don't come to uplift you, they come to unload, to pour their chaos onto your shoulders without even considering how it affects you. You know exactly who I'm talking about. That relative who, the moment their name flashes on your phone screen, makes your heart sink. You already know that the conversation will not bring you peace. It will bring exhaustion. They never call to ask how you're feeling, never stop by to share good news or offer a smile. They only show up when they need someone to dump their frustrations on, turning you into their personal therapist, their emotional garbage bin, without ever asking how you're really doing. What's worse is that over time, you may not even realize how much space you've allowed them to occupy in your life. This dynamic often starts subtly, disguised as family concern or a request for advice. But before you know it, you've become the one who listens to every complaint, absorbs every crisis, and carries burdens that were never meant to be yours. After 60, this kind of relationship becomes especially dangerous. Your energy is not limitless. You've walked a long road, fought battles, built stories, and now more than ever you deserve peace. Yet the energy vampire doesn't care about the moment you're living. They don't respect your time, your silence, or your emotional health. They continue to act as if it's your duty to listen endlessly, to absorb every crisis, to fix problems that aren't yours. And the cost of this is high. Every time you allow them to unload their negativity on you, a little piece of your peace is stolen. Your nights become restless. Your thoughts grow heavy. Anxiety creeps in without you noticing, and your physical health can begin to feel the weight of emotions that were never yours to carry. But how do you recognize this energy vampire in your family? It's not always obvious. They don't come with fangs or a sinister look, but the signs are clear if you pay attention. They only call when they're in crisis. They never ask about you. The conversation is always about their problems. Any attempt to share your own experiences is quickly overshadowed by their drama. And when the conversation ends, you feel lighter? No, you feel drained, tense, as if something heavy has settled on your chest. The worst part is, many of these people don't even realize the damage they cause. They've grown used to using you as an emotional outlet because you've always allowed it. Because society tells us that family is everything and that we should tolerate, listen, and endure no matter what. But this idea is dangerous. After 60, you have no obligation to carry anyone else's emotional weight. It's time to reclaim your peace. And to do that, you need to learn how to set boundaries. Clear, healthy, and non-negotiable boundaries. When that relative calls to unload their darkness, you have every right to say, "I'm not in a place to carry these problems right now." You have the right to redirect the conversation or to end it entirely. You are not selfish for protecting your emotional health. You are wise. If necessary, You can distance yourself. Some relationships need space to stop hurting. It doesn't matter if it's a cousin, a sibling, a child, or an old family friend. Your well-being comes first. You've spent a lifetime giving. Now is the time to protect what you've built. Your serenity. When you close the door to the energy vampire, something beautiful happens. Space opens up for people who bring light instead of shadows. For family and friends who want to celebrate life with you, not weigh it down. You will finally breathe lighter, sleep better, and live the stage of your life that you deserve, free from unnecessary burdens. And if you think this type of relative is dangerous, wait until you discover the next one. In the following part, we'll expose the kind of family member who is even more toxic, because they don't just drain your energy, they want something else from you. They only show up when they need something from you. They disguise interest as affection, and they can cause wounds much deeper than you imagine. Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal next might open your eyes forever. Part 2. The opportunist. Relative. The one who only shows up when they need something. There's a type of relative who is even more dangerous than the one who drains your energy with complaints and negativity. This one is subtle, strategic, and at times, charming. They don't come carrying the weight of their problems on their shoulders. Instead, they come smiling, pretending to care, pretending to be close, but behind every word, there's a hidden agenda. This is the opportunist relative, the one who only knocks on your door when they need something. You may not notice them at first. In fact, they often disguise themselves well. They can be that cousin who suddenly reappears after years without calling, that nephew who never visited when you needed help but now seems overly affectionate, that distant relative who never showed interest in your life but suddenly wants to know how you're doing, how your health is, how your finances are, how your house is. But if you pay attention, there's a pattern. They never come empty-handed. They come with a request. They might start subtly asking for small favors, a little loan, a place to stay for a few days. They will make you believe you are the only person who can help them, but their real interest is not in you. It's in what you can provide. Whether it's money, resources, influence, or emotional support, the opportunist relative is an expert at camouflaging interest as affection. The manipulation can be so subtle that you begin to question yourself. You may think, maybe I'm being too harsh, maybe they really care. But look closely. Where were they when you were in need? Where were they when you faced your darkest days? Why do they only show up when they want something? After 60, this dynamic becomes even more dangerous because many opportunist relatives prey on something very specific: your vulnerability. They know that as you age, your emotional defenses can soften. You long for connection, for family, for affection, and they use that desire as a weapon, as a gateway to get what they want. They will tell you what you want to hear. They will flatter you, show up with a smile, say they miss you, remind you of old times. But pay attention to the timing. It always coincides with a request, a need, a favor. And once they get what they want, they disappear, until the next time they need something again. The cost of keeping these opportunists around is high. Every time you give in, thinking it's just one small favor, you reinforce the dynamic. You open the door a little wider for them to come back, each time taking a little more of your time, your resources, your peace. You sacrifice your well-being, your finances, your energy, to feed someone's selfish interests, disguised as family affection. But how do you protect yourself? How do you break free from this emotional trap? First, you need to accept a difficult but liberating truth. Family ties do not give anyone the right to manipulate you. Blood relations are not an excuse to take advantage of your kindness. Once you recognize that, you must learn to say no without guilt. It's not about being cruel or cold. It's about being fair to yourself. When that opportunist relative reappears with their usual speech asking for yet another favor, stop and think, what have they done for you? When was the last time they called just to ask how you were without expecting something in return? If the answer is never or almost never, you already know their true intention. You are under no obligation to meet every demand disguised as a family request. You have the right to protect your resources, your time, and above all, your emotional peace. You've spent a lifetime working, fighting, giving. Now it's time to receive, to rest, to live without the constant weight of being used by others. Some may call you selfish, but those who love you for real will understand and respect your limits. And those who disappear when you say no, they were never truly there for you to begin with. They were only there for what you could give. Once you close the door to the opportunist relative, something powerful happens. You start to see who really values you, who stays even when there's nothing to gain. Your relationships become lighter, more honest, and your peace returns. But if you think the opportunist is dangerous, wait until you meet the next type of relative. In the following part, I'll reveal the family member who doesn't drain your energy or your resources. They target something much deeper, your self-esteem. They disguise their criticism as care, but their words can poison your soul. Stay with me, because what I'll reveal next might change the way you look at certain relatives forever. Part 3. The critical relative. The one who never supports you, only judges you. There is a kind of relative who doesn't need to drain your energy with constant complaints or manipulate you to get what they want. Their weapon is far more subtle, but much more poisonous. They use words, they use looks, they use silence. This is the critical relative, the one who never supports you, never encourages you, never celebrates your victories, but is always ready to judge, criticize, and remind you of your flaws. They don't need to shout. They don't need to ask for anything. Their presence alone is enough to make you feel small, to make you question yourself, to diminish your light. And the worst part is, they often do it disguised as care. They will say things like, "I'm just being honest," or "I'm saying this because I care about you." But the truth is, their words aren't there to build you up. They're there to control you, to belittle you, to make you doubt yourself. You know this relative. They are the ones who, no matter what you do, will always find something wrong. If you achieve something, they'll say it wasn't that big of a deal. If you try something new, they'll warn you of everything that could go wrong. If you finally decide to live your life your way, they'll remind you of your past mistakes, your age, your limitations. Their favorite phrase is, "At your age, you shouldn't," or "You've always been like this." And this is not harmless. After 60, their words can echo louder than ever before. Because when you reach this stage of life, you carry with you not only your experiences, but also your wounds. And every criticism, every judgment, every dismissive comment can reopen those wounds, making you feel like you've never done enough, like you've always fallen short. What makes the critical relative so dangerous is that their poison is slow, silent, and constant. It's not an open attack. It's a drip, a subtle erosion of your self-esteem over time. And because they are family, you may have tolerated it for years, even decades, believing that their words were part of their personality, that they didn't mean harm, that you should endure it because that's just how they are. But the truth is, no one has the right to make you feel small. Not a cousin, not a sibling, not a parent, not even a child. After everything you've lived, after everything you've built, you deserve to be surrounded by people who recognize your journey, who applaud your victories, who lift you up, not those who constantly remind you of your flaws. So how do you break free from this invisible prison? First, you need to recognize the pattern. Every time you leave a conversation feeling guilty, ashamed, or diminished, pay attention. That is not normal. That is not love. That is control, disguised as honesty. Once you recognize the pattern, you need to protect yourself. And that protection begins with emotional boundaries. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain yourself. You simply need to stop allowing their words to define you. Their opinion is not the truth, it's just noise. Noise that you've been conditioned to hear for too long. It's also important to limit your exposure. If every family gathering becomes an opportunity for them to attack your self-worth, maybe it's time to attend fewer gatherings. Maybe it's time to keep your distance, to choose peace over obligation. And when you do see them, remember, you are not obligated to absorb their judgment. You can listen without agreeing. You can smile without accepting. You can nod without allowing their criticism to take root inside you. The greatest gift you can give yourself after 60 is freedom. Freedom from the expectations, opinions, and judgments of those who never saw your value. You've lived enough to know your worth. You don't need anyone else's approval to continue your journey. And when you finally silence the voice of the critical relative in your mind, you'll realize how much lighter life becomes, how much space you'll have to rediscover who you truly are, without the weight of other people's judgments. But if you think the critical relative is damaging, wait until you meet the next one. In the next part, I'll reveal the family member who doesn't use words or favors to manipulate you. They use something much more powerful, guilt. They master the art of emotional blackmail, and if you're not careful, they can control your entire life without you even realizing it. Stay with me, because what you'll discover next will change forever the way you see certain family ties. Part 4. The manipulative relative, the one who controls you through guilt. There is a type of relative who doesn't need to raise their voice, who doesn't openly criticize you or ask for favors. Their strategy is much more subtle, much more dangerous. They control you without even touching you. They hold you captive, not with chains, but with something far heavier: guilt. This is the manipulative relative, the one who knows exactly how to use your emotions against you. They don't shout. They don't ask. They suggest. They imply. They plant seeds of doubt and guilt in your heart and wait for them to grow. They are experts in making you feel responsible for their happiness, their sadness, their frustrations. If they're not doing well, it's because you weren't there enough. If something bad happened to them, it's because you didn't help enough. If they feel alone, it's because you didn't visit, didn't call, didn't give them what they wanted. The manipulative relative is subtle. They will say things like, "I understand you have your life, I'm just here alone." Or, "Don't worry about me, I'll figure it out somehow." Or even worse, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me." And every word, every sigh, every look is a dagger aimed at one thing: your conscience. After 60, this manipulation becomes even more dangerous. Because as you grow older, you start to question yourself more. You revisit your past, your choices, your relationships. And the manipulative relative knows exactly how to use your vulnerability against you. They make you believe that you owe them something, that it's your duty to put aside your own peace to fix their unhappiness. What makes this form of manipulation so cruel is that it's almost invisible. From the outside, no one sees it. It looks like love, like concern, like family care. But inside, you feel the weight. You feel the pressure. You feel the suffocating guilt every time you say no. Every time you put yourself first. Every time you choose your own well-being over theirs. And the truth is, guilt is a powerful weapon. It doesn't shout. It doesn't push. It corrodes. Slowly. Silently. It eats away at your peace, your self-esteem, your sense of freedom. It convinces you that no matter what you do, you will always be in debt, that you will never be enough. But here's the reality they don't want you to see. You don't owe anyone your happiness. You don't owe anyone your peace. Family ties are not a lifetime debt. The love you give should be free, voluntary, joyful, never forced, never demanded, never manipulated. So how do you free yourself from this web of guilt? First, you need to recognize the game. Start paying attention to how you feel after every conversation with this relative. Do you feel lighter, supported, understood? Or do you feel guilty, obligated, trapped? That feeling is the clue you need. Once you see the pattern, it's time to break it. And the first step is to give yourself permission to say no without explaining, without justifying, without apologizing. You are not a bad person for protecting your emotional health. You are not selfish for choosing peace over manipulation. It's also essential to stop feeding the guilt. Every time you give in to their emotional blackmail, you reinforce the cycle. The more you allow them to control you, the more they will tighten the strings. The only way to break free is to stop playing the game. And yes, at first, it will hurt. You will feel the weight of the accusations, the silent treatments, the heavy looks. But over time, something incredible will happen. You will start to breathe again. You will realize how much of your energy, your time, your life was being drained by guilt. After 60, you deserve freedom. You deserve to live without invisible chains around your heart. You deserve to love your family without feeling imprisoned by them. And when you finally free yourself from the manipulative relative, you will create space for real relationships. Relationships built on love, respect, and freedom, not on guilt and obligation. But if you think this relative is toxic, wait until you meet the last one. In the next part, I will reveal the most painful of all. The family member who disappears when you need them the most. The one who is never there when life gets heavy. And learning how to deal with their absence might be the final key to your emotional freedom. Stay with me, because what you will discover next will help you close a cycle you didn't even know was open. Part 5. The absent relative. The one who disappears when you need them most. There's one type of relative that in silence leaves scars deeper than any words or manipulations ever could. Unlike the energy vampire who drains you, the opportunist who uses you, or the manipulator who controls you, this relative doesn't even stay close enough to do that. Their absence is their weapon. This is the absent relative, the one who vanishes when life gets hard, when the weight is too heavy, when you most need a hand to hold. You may not realize how much their absence affects you until the moment you need them. When illness knocks on your door, when loneliness creeps into your nights, when you face moments of weakness and look around, searching for family, for those who should be there, and they're gone. They're too busy, too distant, too distracted with their own lives to care. These are the relatives who only show up in pictures, in memories, in stories from the past. When life was light, when there were parties, birthdays, family gatherings, they were there. But when darkness fell, when you needed a simple call, a visit, a gesture of care, they disappeared. What makes this kind of relative so painful is that they don't take anything from you. They simply don't give. And their absence echoes louder because deep down, you expected more. You believed that when everything else failed, family would be there. And when they're not, the emptiness they leave is deafening. After 60, this absence weighs even more, because you begin to understand the value of presence. You no longer need grand gestures or empty words. You need people who are there. People who show up not when it's convenient, but when it matters. And when those you expected the most from disappear, it's not just disappointment you feel, it's abandonment. But here's something you need to understand. Their absence says more about them than about you. It's not your fault. It's not because you weren't good enough, or didn't do enough. Some people simply don't know how to be present. Some people are too caught up in their own lives, too selfish, too emotionally immature to understand what it means to stand by someone when it matters. And the most powerful thing you can do, after 60, is stop expecting from them what they will never give you. Stop waiting for the call that will never come. Stop hoping for the gesture that will never arrive. You deserve peace. And peace is built not on waiting, but on accepting. Accept that some relatives are absent by choice. And in that absence, you are free to choose something greater, to be present for yourself, to build connections with those who want to be there, to surround yourself with people who don't vanish when the weight of life gets too heavy. Before I reveal how to finally protect yourself from all these types of relatives and take back control of your peace, I want to remind you of something very important. If this content is opening your eyes, if it's helping you understand the relationships that have drained you for years, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Here we talk about life, wisdom, relationships, and how to reclaim your peace after 60. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, and activate the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to protect yourself from every single toxic family dynamic we've talked about in this video. Now let's move on to the final revelation, the strategy that will allow you to cut these emotional chains once and for all, and finally live the next chapter of your life in total freedom. Now you know the truth. These 5 types of relatives, the ones who drain you, use you, judge you, manipulate you, or disappear when you need them, don't deserve space in your life anymore. After 60, your time is too precious to waste on people who steal your peace. So here's the real message. You don't owe anyone your happiness. You don't need to carry anyone's emotional weight. From now on, you have the right to choose yourself, to protect your peace, to surround yourself only with those who bring light, not darkness. And if this video opened your eyes, don't stop here. Subscribe now. This channel is your safe space to learn how to protect your soul, your energy, and your heart after 60. Hit the like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear this truth, and leave a comment below. Which of these relatives have you dealt with? And what did you do to take back your peace? Because here, we don't just talk about family, we talk about freedom,